Let's talk about forgiveness, not as a word we throw around in church or therapy, but as a real spiritual and emotional discipline that most of us never truly learned how to practice. You see, most people think forgiveness is a one-time act. You say the words, "I forgive you," and somehow, magically, the pain disappears. But if you've ever really been hurt, if you've ever had your trust violated, your dignity dismissed, or your love mishandled, then you already know forgiveness is not simple, it is not instant, and it is not natural. Everything in you wants to hold on to what you feel you're owed, because forgiveness, at its core, feels unfair. But here's the dilemma. The longer you hold on to what someone did to you, the more you become bound to them. That's the irony. Unforgiveness doesn't trap them, it traps you. You relive the moment. You rehearse the conversation. You replay the betrayal. And whether you know it or not, you're building your identity around that pain. You're no longer just someone who was hurt. You're someone who carries it into every new relationship, every opportunity, every self-doubt. From a psychological standpoint, unforgiveness keeps your nervous system in a constant state of alert. You stay in fight or flight because part of you is still fighting that moment, still trying to make sense of it, still hoping to win a battle that ended long ago. But your mind doesn't know it's over because your heart hasn't let go. And spiritually, it's even deeper. Jesus didn't say forgive because it's polite. He said forgive because it sets you free. Not the other person, you. You can't walk into your future if your soul is anchored to the pain of your past. Unforgiveness is like carrying a weight that was never yours to bear. And yet, we do it because we think it protects us. We tell ourselves, if I forgive, it means what they did didn't matter. Or, if I forgive, they'll never be held accountable. But real forgiveness doesn't erase accountability. It just means you're no longer holding the receipt. You're not the judge. You're not the executioner. You're not God. You release the debt not because they're innocent, but because you're tired of carrying what was never meant to be yours. What they did may have changed your life, but it doesn't get to define your life. Here's the truth. You will never be at peace until you learn to forgive. Because peace doesn't come from the outside. It's cultivated from within. You can't build a life of peace when your heart is still at war. Let me say this plainly. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not letting people walk all over you. It's not turning a blind eye. Forgiveness is strength. It's maturity. It's choosing to rise above what happened, not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more than what happened to you. So, how do you do it? How do you forgive someone who never said sorry? How do you forgive someone who isn't even sorry? Someone who may never acknowledge what they did, or worse, someone who denies it completely. This is where most people get stuck, because we've been conditioned to believe that forgiveness depends on the other person, on their remorse, their apology, their change of behavior. But that's not forgiveness. That's reconciliation, and reconciliation takes two. Forgiveness? That's between you and God. Forgiveness is not about changing them, it's about freeing you. Psychologically, forgiveness is an intentional act of letting go of resentment. But emotionally, it's a process. A process that begins with naming what happened, not downplaying it, not spiritualizing it away, not pretending you weren't affected. Real forgiveness starts with truth. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to confront, and you cannot release what you're still afraid to name. You must get honest. This is what they did. This is how it hurt. This is what it took from me. This is what it made me believe about myself. That honesty, it's painful, but it's holy ground. Because until you see the wound clearly, you can't let God begin to tend to it. You'll keep covering it up, dressing it in pride, numbing it with busyness, masking it with false strength. But when you finally lay it bare, something powerful begins to happen. You take your story back. You stop being the victim of your memory, and you become the author of your healing. Now let me be clear. Healing through forgiveness is not linear. You don't wake up one day and magically feel free. Some days you'll feel light, like you've moved on. Other days, a sound, a scent, a place will pull you back into that moment, and you'll wonder if anything changed at all. That's not failure. That's the nature of grief. Forgiveness is like peeling an onion. It happens in layers. Sometimes you forgive the person. Then later you realize you need to forgive the impact, the ripple effects, the parts of your life that changed because of that one moment. And then you may need to forgive yourself for staying too long, for not seeing it sooner, for who you became while trying to survive it. It's a journey, but each layer you peel off takes you closer to your peace. Spiritually, forgiveness requires surrender. You have to trust that God sees, that He knows, and that He will deal with what you no longer need to carry. You give up the right to revenge, not because you're okay with what happened, but because you trust divine justice more than your own anger. And yes, sometimes God deals with people in ways you never see. That's not your concern. Your freedom is. Forgiveness is the door. Healing is what walks through it. You may still feel the scar, but the wound is no longer infected. You may remember the story, but it no longer controls the ending. And here's the beauty. When you've truly forgiven, your memory no longer brings torment. It brings wisdom. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did this teach me about who I am and what I deserve?" You get your voice back. You get your boundaries back. You get your clarity back. That's what forgiveness does. It doesn't erase your past. It redeems your future. And that is freedom.